Aloha. I am Judy Weber, and this is Rachel Conley, and we are coming to talk to you from living in Hawaii. Rachel, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Rachel Conley. I live on the Big Island of Hawaii. I live in South Hawaii, and I have for over 10 years.
Thank you. So, we're talking to Rachel today because a lot of people who are interested in moving to Hawaii have questions about their kids and what will it be like for their kids. And what's unique about Rachel is she lives in a very rural area of the Big Island of Hawaii. So we have her here with us today so we can ask her some questions about that and you can learn what it would be like for you and your kids if you decide to move to rural Hawaii. So, Rachel, my first question is for you. Well, all my questions are for you. My first question is, what inspired you to raise your kids in rural Hawaii rather than a more urban area?
Sure. So that actually goes back to my personal roots. I was born in the Bay Area in Northern California, and we lived in Napa in a total suburbia for the first 11 years of my life. And, it was like the typical neighborhood suburbia, ride your bike to your friend's house, which was super fun. It still, still wasn't super dense urban, but my parents decided to basically pick up everything and move to southern Humboldt, which is about another 4 hours north in a super rural place called Bryceland, and buy 22 acres and homestead and completely change and go back to the earth, kind of back to the land movement. And yeah, that changed my life. Just changed to my total viewpoint of what rural is. I did off gridding, solar generator, like outhouse at a very young age. So to me, it was a huge culture shock. I didn't even it's a pretty big hippie community there, and I was like, hippies still exist? What? So,
Mhm.
anyways, long story short is I just loved it. It's so much more freedom growing up in a rural community. Yes, it can be kind of boring sometimes, but you have kind of the freedom to roam, and have all this privacy, and your quality of life is different. And I just really enjoyed it. Of course, I still enjoy going to the city and dining and whatnot, but
Mhm.
that kind of carried through to my kids. I met my partner in Humboldt County as well, and he shared the same love for, he had, when I met him, he had a 200-acre farm. So we had raised alpacas for a little bit, and
Mhm.
just really we enjoyed having that space and that nature and that lifestyle. And I had my son during that time when I was still in Northern California, and on a place called the Lost Coast in Shelter Cove, because literally it's very sheltered. It was about 2 hours from the nearest like Costco or Target. So yeah, that just were my own personal values that carried through when we decided to move to Hawaii together, with my son, who was about 2 at the time. And we just, we enjoy the privacy, the space, the more slower paced style of living.
What an exciting lifestyle you have. And I bet people don't think about it when you say, I came from California and I live in Hawaii. Nobody's thinking that you've got alpacas and that you're out in the rural. They're thinking, LA for California and they're thinking Honolulu for Hawaii. So it's so cool that
Sure.
you have this other perspective to share with us. So,
Definitely.
yeah. So I have another question. How would you describe a typical day in your family's life out here in rural Hawaii?
Sure. So it's funny because where I live in Ocean View, Hawaiian Ocean View Estates, to me it's rural, but it's not as rural as where I kind of grew up. So it's like instead of 20 acres, I'm on 1 acre. So to me, it's like, it's kind of, I can see my neighbors. To me, that doesn't seem crazy rural, but because we have to get up pretty early, about 5:30 in the morning, get my kids on the school bus at 6:30 because it's rural and their schools they're far away. They're 30 and 40 minutes respectively. So, because we're in Ka'u, which is the biggest district and most rural in the Hawaii Island. So we usually get up early. The kids go off to school, and then I work at home. I feed my cats and my dogs. I don't have chickens or any other, animals at this moment, but it's pretty much like a typical day. I am blessed that I'm a realtor, so I can work at home. If I
Mhm.
wanted to cruise into the office or do showings in Kona, it's about an hour and 10 minutes each way. So that, you do have to plan for that and then be back in time around 2:30, 3 p.m. to get my kids from the bus. And then we just go home. I mean, it's a pretty typical day. It doesn't consist of too much difference. I mean, I'm not out there like feeding the chickens and milking the cows or anything like that, but it does require planning if you want to do things in Kona or Hilo.
Mhm. Yeah, you need to leave some time for travel, right?
You do, you kind of have a window, especially if your kids are in school, that you kind of go or make plans for someone to pick them up. My mom lives out
Mhm.
here too, so that's super beneficial. Yeah.
So you mentioned you can see your neighbors. Can you
Yes.
tell us how far away they are, how much land you have? How does that look?
So we're on the acre parcels. Hawaiian Ocean View Estates is 1 acre parcels. I have to kind of like go outside to see my neighbors, but there's like the neighbor behind me is an acre. I don't see him because my house faces out. But yeah, it's relatively close. Like you can kind of see and hear people, but you're not like in a densely residential area where you're look out and you see. I don't see my neighbors' houses. I have to kind of go outside and walk around, if that gives you some reference.
Yeah. It's not a subdivision where you can reach out and shake hands with your neighbor and they're
Sure.
in their house and you're in your house.
Right. No, it's not. It's not. You do have space. A lot of people have buffers and buy like 1 acre and like have the buffer around them. So that's
Mm,
something that, and then if you're down below the highway in Hawaiian ranchos, it's 3 acres.
okay, nice. So, back to your kids. What are some of the biggest advantages you found in raising children in a rural Hawaii setting?
I think it's just the community is really tight and strong because rural communities usually are because it's, we're here out here together, so you kind of have to band together. So I feel like they know more people more intimately in a way. Aunties and uncles, they'll see the same people at the store and whatnot. And I also just think the slower pace, them being okay to be out in nature and wilderness more, just gives them more
Mhm.
benefits of that.
On that note, what challenges do you think that you have faced that other parents don't live in a rural area might not expect?
Sure. Well, when I first moved here and I had my daughter, it was hard. The pediatricians were all in Kona, which is like an hour away. So that was challenging because, again, dental, pediatrician, food, everything that you have to kind of go for your kids is far. So that was a challenge. However, we do now have a doctor out here in Nalehu, so that's super convenient. Now we've kind of a lot of those challenges have gotten better since more people have moved here. So now they, just in this little community, there's ballet classes, there's martial arts classes, there's baseball, there's like a lot of extracurricular things that
Mm,
before we had to drive to Kona or Kealakekua for. So
mhm.
that's a challenge. Of course, just being not close to a lot of the bigger stores can be challenging, but it's just really planning and mindset.
Good. Um, has local culture influenced the way you're raising your kids at all?
I think so. So when I first got here, there was a program called Tutu and Me, and it's a traveling preschool. Unfortunately, it's not
Mm,
in South Hawaii anymore, but it still is around. But it's like this Montessori preschool that's very Hawaiian based. And for me, it was really great because they did Hawaiian songs and they counted in Hawaiian. And I felt like a lot of the values, like being pono, being good, and kokua, help everyone helping. Those just basic values are something that we all do now. So yeah.
nice. Very nice. Are there any certain kind of activities that your kids enjoy living in the environment where you are?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I love going to the beach.
Of course.
Yeah, that's luckily we do have some access to some more private spots that a lot of tourists don't go to, so that's kind of nice to have that space for them. Yeah, they like to. My son wants to learn to hunt, which is cultural, and of course, another thing that rural Hawaii has. So yeah, there's a lot of cool activities, and then my daughter is a Girl Scout, so we get out in nature a lot that way as well.
Can you tell us what kind of things a person would hunt in Hawaii?
Yeah,
Animals.
mostly yes, it would mostly be the wild boars, the pigs.
Hmm.
So, that's usually number 1. There's a lot of those on the island. There's also wild goats and
Hmm.
mouflons, which are like a goat deer mix, sheep mix, I
Hmm.
think. So
Hmm.
those ones, and then there are people who do hunt birds, like turkeys, different wild birds as well. So,
Just an interesting note. My daughter said that at her school, because her school is in a rural spot up in the forest, and she said yesterday that a pig came and took one of the kids' lunches and threw
oh,
it in cane grass, and
oh my
that was the
gosh.
excitement for the day.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Definitely.
speaking of that, how do you approach education? Do you have to do homeschooling? Is there public school? What do you do? Or what can you
So,
do?
yes, what can you do? Obviously, there is public school. My kids go to Nalehu Elementary, which is about 30, and then my son goes to Ka'u High and Pahala Elementary, which is about 40 minutes because he's in 8th grade. They have been in the school system since beginning, since pre-K. So we really love the local schools. There's a lot of culture, a lot of benefits. So that's why we have to give those early bus times, of course. And yeah, I really enjoy the public schools. I kind of heard that, negative, good and bad things about it. And I think it really depends on how much involvement as a parent that you put
Mhm,
into it and make it better. And I've noticed that the school has gotten better since I've been here. There's
mhm,
just more funding, more energy, more educational benefits like drama clubs and robotics and a lot of neat stuff. One cool thing is because it's rural and there's a lot of migrants from different areas coming to do farm work, like nut picking and coffee picking.
mhm,
There is a lot of funding that goes to these local schools, so they
mhm,
reap from those benefits. However, before I did public school, I was considering homeschooling, but life didn't go that way. However, there is a huge homeschool community here. It's huge. They have homeschool hui's, little groups, and they do all sorts of curriculum together and do field trips. So if that's something that anyone's interested in, it's pretty great programs here.
Good. It's good to hear that it's going well in the public school because before you move here and you have kids, you hear a lot about, oh, you can't do public school. You just
Mhm.
can't. Your kids won't be welcome. They won't learn anything. And we've had the complete opposite experience ourselves, and it
Me
sounds like you
too.
have too.
Me too.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Because it gets a little scary if you're thinking of moving here with kids, and then like someone's saying, "Oh no, kids aren't. You've got to go to private school." Well, that
Right.
makes sense.
Right, and a lot of those are outdated, viewpoints from a
They
long time
are.
ago when, there were some cultural, issues too,
Mhm,
just having outsiders, but,
mhm.
I think that a lot of that stuff is very outdated.
Yeah, we haven't run into that at all in a full year of being here and our kid in public school. So
Yeah,
that's a
nice.
plug for public school because it's
Yeah, yeah,
awesome.
and homeschool too. I mean, like I said, our friends are kind of a mix of both, which is great because
Hmm.
my daughter hangs out kind of with because she does ballet and all the Girl Scouts. There's a mix of public and homeschool kids, so I think that's a great mix of different
It
people.
is. It is. Are there any community traditions or events that happen down there in Ka'u that have become meaningful to your family?
Yeah, we love the May Day celebration.
Mm,
That's probably our favorite. It's only in elementary school right now, but we're gearing up for that. And that's Hawaiians' rich culture of their May Day festival, their Lei festival, where they do the Hawaiian court and then all the schools dance. So that's one of our
mhm.
funnest. things.
Mhm.
And then there's fishing tournaments. What else do they have? Yeah, just a lot of basic community stuff, but
Mhm.
I would say the May Day and the fishing tournaments are our favorite.
Fun. So, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently or something you wish you'd known before you made the move here?
Not really. I did move here before I had kids and lived here for a year, so, I kinda already knew. I mean, I didn't have kids, so that's always a different window into things, right?
Mhm.
But I don't think so. I think my kids are super lucky to grow up in Hawaii, especially
Mhm.
in rural Hawaii, because they still do have a lot of freedom there, and like I said, it was a huge district, and there's all the way from Pahala to Ocean View. There's so much, like, free land to roam. Yeah, I think I wouldn't change it at all.
Mhm. You have so much access to beaches and hiking and fresh air, and it's wonderful for kids. I think this is our last question. What advice would you give to families who are thinking about moving to rural Hawaii with kids? So they're on the mainland now. They're really excited to come. They've done all their research, but they're just a little nervous about maybe moving their kids to a rural area in Hawaii. What advice?
Sure, I guess it's so individual, right? Like, it depends on the individual needs of the family and the kids. If you do have kids that have special needs, you might wanna look and see if they have programs that like, in a public school that supports that.
Mhm.
Um, what other things? Yeah, just what are you okay? Are you okay with driving an hour to the grocery stores? Is that something that you can put into your world? Are you okay with like stocking up your freezers and your pantries? Or do you need the access closer? Or are you okay with a slower pace of life? Or do you want more activities happening? I mean, there is a community center here in Nalehu, so we do have a lot of stuff going on, but it's not Kona or Hilo. So I
Mhm.
guess it's just you have to ask yourself these important questions of what you want out of life and how comfortable you are with kind of being remote and not having access to stuff is kind of the
Mhm.
biggest
Yeah,
question.
that's great advice. I think you're doing it wonderfully, and it's great to have you here with us telling about these things. If anyone has any questions, they can contact Living in Hawaii, and I can even put you in contact with Rachel, or you could talk with her some more. So
Please do
before
feel
we,
free to reach out.
sorry, go ahead, say that again.
I said, please do feel free to reach out, pick my brain. I'm happy to help.
She's a very friendly, helpful person. Just out of curiosity, can you tell me about the picture behind in your background?
Oh yeah, so this is actually in Kona, and pine trees. It's just
Hmm.
a sunset beach picture
Yep.
after a birthday party. So yeah, which
I know where I know where your favorite beach is, so I thought it might be there, but we
it's not
won't
that
tell.
one. It's not that one. We won't tell. But one other really cool things that you can kind of get your kids jazzed up about is birthday parties on the beach. I mean,
Oh,
think of something anything better than a birthday party on the beach.
and so nice. You don't have to go rent out some big hall or anything. You take your pop-up tents and your food and your fun, and everyone wants to come because they get to swim, and it's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's really my favorite part of raising kids is all the beach parties and just so much
Hmm.
fun memories for sure.
Hmm. All right. Any closing thoughts before we go?
Um, again, reach out if you have any specific questions. If I can't answer them, then I can guide you to where we can, answer that for you. And yeah, Hawaii is a beautiful place to live. And I'm fumbling over. They're going to cut this part out. Sorry. Hawaii is just an amazing, unique place to live. You definitely need to know what you are expecting out of your living experience. And yeah, live each day with aloha.
Thank you, Rachel. You've been amazing, and I think people are going to get a lot out of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Aloha, everybody.
Aloha.